Well, I had a few notes. If I can just drop onto another subject, you had mentioned
Sure.
F.Stop Fitzgerald to me earlier, which could lead into a discussion of another book that you
I don't want to
appeared
talk too
in.
much about that, but yes, it's more about, well, because I did, F-Stop is actually, I don't know if he's still shooting. He was a photographer, a San Francisco photographer. Um, as a music photographer, he was most closely connected to the dead Kennedys. I don't remember when I met him exactly, but F-Stop was interested in the book business and in just business of art, I think. And I did mention in one of the other segments about having been in a show in Italy that I didn't get to see. So F-Stop organized this show, or a show, that was called Coast to Coast. And what that signified was that they were American photographers working in like the whole punk new wave thing. And they were from East Coast and West Coast. So he had gotten work from photographers he knew from the West Coast and also, yeah. So, and that, I don't even know if Coast to Coast ever toured in the United States, but it toured in Europe. The photography
Hmm.
show toured in Europe. And there was a very nice catalog that has the appearance of a book. I do own a copy. It showed up this week or last week on Instagram because another photographer, a guy named Pat Blashill, Pat, I hope I pronounced your name right, who's in Austin, um, posted on his Instagram account my photograph of Lene, Lovich, and Les Chappell. And that photograph, and then I think people started talking about it because people said, "Oh, I have this book um, that has that picture on it," and so it kind of reopened this. I was going to say wound. It's not really a wound, but it is kind of a weird thing that, so a very nice catalog because it was European and this catalog was probably printed in Italy. So it looks like a book, you know, it's maybe just a little bit smaller than Shameless Distortion. And on the cover is the Lena Lovich Les Chappell picture. And underneath it in very bold white letters, it says F.Stop Fitzgerald, making a person who's looking at it believe that that was his photograph because my name does not appear on the cover of this catalog. And I actually just the other day was answering somebody who, kind of connected me to that photograph. And they was saying, they wrote and said, it's such a weird book. And I was like, well, that's because it's not actually a book. And
Hmm.
you think my book has not enough words in it. This, it's a catalog for a show, so I don't know if there's any writing. I do have
Hmm.
a copy somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I understand that F-Stop had curated this show and his name, when you do that, to have your name connected to it, but just the way that the book looks, yeah. You got this very black cover, this very, kind of stark black and white photograph, and then someone else's name underneath it.
I
But
can't remember if you said that photograph that you're talking about, is that one of the books ones in your book in Shameless Distortion?
yes, it is.
It's that one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is a great photo.
Um, yeah, it's really
Was
a shame that they haven't figured out in Zoom, like when I point to something, my pointing finger doesn't go into your window.
that's right. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Was just I'm curious, was Lena Lovich good to work with? I've always admired her. I always liked
Yes.
her music.
You know, um, a lot of people really don't know this, and a lot of people do. Lena's from Ohio, I think.
Hmm.
She's from the Midwest of the United States, but she had a shtick, is that how you pronounce it? As like an Eastern European new wave artist. So she had kind of a fake accent, and the way that she dressed kind of was, a little bit leaned on the peasant braids, country, European country girl kind of thing. And I photographed her a few times, and we got along really well. She's very nice, and Les is nice too. But she probably didn't want to. I mean, when we would work together, it'd be, promotional pictures, and I could understand, coming out of character to communicate with me would not really have been appropriate. Because it's not like we were in a private space. She would have had to come out and be,
Do you mean that
Lene
off
from
stage?
Ohio. Huh?
Do you mean that generally off stage, when she was talking to people at the club, she would be in a character of this
She
Eastern
was
Europe?
in character.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Oh yeah.
Wow. That's funny.
Well, I
That's
think it was
committing to the
weird.
bit.
Huh?
That's
Oh
committing
yeah.
to the bit. Yeah.
That's why I think there were a lot of people that had no idea that she was an
Mhm.
American.
No, that was funny because there were a number, well, Rachel Sweet, there were several Stiff Records artists that were from America that ended up on Stiff.
Yeah.
And then of course there was Chrissie Hynde, was from Ohio, but made her name in London.
Yeah, and those are two different girls, trust me.
Okay.
I didn't get, well, I'm saying that, I didn't even get within, an inch of Chrissy. Even when
Did
she played the Paradise, it was just,
did
I'd
you
hate
ever,
that
I don't
thing
think,
to happen.
did you take
Huh?
photos of the Pretenders?
No, I'm saying
Oh.
I was not allowed to
Hmm.
have any time with them,
Hmm.
which was very disappointing when you really like a band and they're not, when they played the Paradise, generally speaking, when people played the Paradise, they haven't been around that long. But I was already it happened a few times. I remember the Brian Setzer's band. What's the name of his band?
Stray Cats.
Yeah, Stray Cats also. Yep. Let me know they had no interest in me. I'm not going to say dirty words, but come on, really? You're already so important. Yeah, and I like the Pretenders so much, and this is a photography thing for me. If somebody had already if I saw great pictures of a band, I was not motivated. I wasn't like, oh, let me see if I can do better. If there were already great pictures of a band in existence, I was like, okay, so somebody got them. Somebody already did, they already did it, and I don't need to do it. If I see a band and I see, I could take great pictures of this band and no one's done that yet, yeah, it's more of a motivation for me. So for instance, and I feel very differently about him today, but back in the day, huge Elvis Costello fan, huge Elvis Costello fan. The guy has, despite how I feel about him today, and certainly back then, amazing taste and knew, how things looked, their album covers, he's a troubled person, or he was, and maybe still is, I don't really know. But yeah, his grasp of the visual arts pretty strong. And I don't even know who did his photography work, but it was very good, and I wouldn't have even bothered. I probably
But then what
Yeah.
about when you photographed bands again, like you revisited bands? Were you ever thinking about what you'd done before and whether you need to do something different, or?
No, not really. I mean, I'd have to go back and look, because I'm thinking a lot of times it really was the first time that I probably got the strongest work. But you know, when bands would come back, um, you know, people get older. I mean, the last time I photographed the Buzzcocks, they were quite a bit older and they looked
Mhm.
very different. I mean, and, you know, you had said something, people want to know when and how old they are and stuff. Yeah, it'd be silly to keep showing the pictures from 1979, you know, in 1989. You know, they look different.
Mhm.
But I would say that the pictures I took in 79 were better, and not because of their age, but I'm not really sure why.
Hmm.
Um, I photographed Los Lobos a few times, I think, but definitely the first time I think was the strongest. Um, Gang of Four, the first time I wasn't that crazy about what I got. And then I think subsequent times I got some good stuff with them. I'm thinking my best Gang of Four was maybe the third time that I photographed them at the channel.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's an interesting question. And I, yeah, I wasn't thinking, you know, how can I top myself? Uh,
Mhm. No, I wasn't thinking that necessarily, but whether you thought I mean, I know that sometimes you were working with the space or the atmosphere that you was available to you, so you didn't have necessarily control over that. But I wondered if you thought, well, I don't want this to look the same way something I did before did, or
you'd think I would have thought that. But I don't know that I did. I'm also thinking I photographed the B-52s a number of times. Um, and a number of times I got really some very strong stuff.
Mhm.
And, you know, as we were talking about in one of the earlier discussions, um, there was a time they were playing in one of the clubs on Lansdowne Street, and I think we were given like Metro. They must not have been playing in Metro, whatever it was. We were in a very large space. Somebody said, yeah, you can shoot in here. And so I had the band, I had all the time in the world in this giant space. I couldn't make it work. I could see that it wasn't working. The negatives still, there is a picture of Fred that people like, but it has to really be worked on in the darkroom. I mean, I was having trouble with lighting. I think, yeah, one of the things that I had mentioned is, you know, this hot light that I used um, really couldn't fill up a large space. It functioned better in a very small back room, bouncing off the
Mhm.
walls and the umbrella. And so when I was given this huge space, Metro, to work in, the light would just get sucked up by the
Mhm.
darkness. It wouldn't illuminate the area well enough.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and it's very difficult. You don't, you know, you don't want to say to the band, oh, this is looking like crap, because that's discouraging.
Right.
um, you know, you want to, so I'm like busy trying to like figure out what's going on and trying to mask that I'm not happy. And I'm
Mhm.
not that great an actress. um, so yeah. Um, but I did have a couple of really good times at, with the B-52s. The first time I met them, they were opening. I always think this is amazing because I'm sure they had other shows that you don't really hear very much about it. Um, when I was after I spent that afternoon with David Byrne during the Fear of Music tour,
Mhm.
I didn't meet the band at all. I did see them play. It's a notable time where I do actually remember seeing Talking Heads play Hampton Beach. And then about a month later, they came back and played Berklee School of Music. It was the B-52s opened up for the Talking Heads at Berklee. Amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great show.
And so, you know, David already knew me, and that's where I had the opportunity to photograph the whole band because the afternoon we spent together was just him. And I photographed the B-52s. And, you know, yeah, some of my definitely in the book, B-52's pictures from that.
Mhm.
And, but what was funny was when they came back, when the B-52s came back the next time to Boston, they were playing the Paradise, and I went backstage and I was meeting them. It was like, they were very excited because the Boston Phoenix had printed the picture that I had taken backstage from Berkeley. I was not so excited because rather than contact me and ask me for a print, they actually took the photograph off the contact sheet. And so they
Oh,
printed, here's my hands. I gotta always,
yeah.
like a, I don't know, 4x5 in the paper saying, oh, B-52's Paradise tonight. And it looked like I had shot it through a piece of wax paper. It was just like, yeah, mush. There's a band in there somewhere. But they were excited because they had gotten, the coverage and, got the
Mhm.
picture, and
Had they seen the photo before,
I
do you
don't
think?
remember.
But you think they liked it?
I think I'm trying to remember if I actually went backstage and said, here's what it actually looks like. Here's a photograph
Yeah, she just
without the
brought a
wax
big,
paper.
large blow up of it with you, you carry around everywhere.
Um, yeah, eventually, if not right then, were they able to see it, or even
Mhm.
before, but um,
And that's the photo that's in the book? Or is that a different one
there's
that's
more,
in the
no,
book?
I would, again, I'm gotta remember which hand to gesture, where to put my
Mhm.
gesturing hands. Um, uh,
Oh, that was, yeah,
there's
from
more than one
Berkeley.
B-52 picture in the book.
There's the one from the Berkeley Performance Center.
Yeah, we're gonna hold that
And yeah, I was looking for the other
Well,
B-52's photo. I don't see it.
I know for sure there is a picture of Kate.
Oh, that's might be what I'm missing out. This is
Yeah,
the one. This is the one at Berkeley. So
yeah,
this is from the first time you photographed them.
yes.
Mhm.
And then the picture of Kate, they were on the Cape someplace. When
On the
someone,
Cape.
yeah,
Were they playing like
at
what,
a
South Shore
venue.
Music Theater or something?
No, I don't think so. It was a club that I had never been to before and never went to after. Somebody must have given me a ride.
Well, it must be in here somewhere. I'm having it's easier to spot the B-52s than Cape Pearson, so the name, I mean. Um, well, that's cool. They played last night, by the way, in Athens.
Did they?
Yeah.
You didn't go though.
No, a lot of my friends did, and it was all over my Facebook. Yeah, because I have still have a lot of friends in Athens, and they all went. I had friends come down from other states.
Is everybody happy?
I think so. Everybody's always happy with the B-52s. Um, well, I had one other thing I thought I'd ask you about. We were talking about earlier about Lee Friedlander, and that's in the context of when you've been talked about Garry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to mention again to say something more about Garry? And
Just to explain why we're talking about him.
Mhm.
Yeah, I I'm gonna go back just a little bit. So there was a pattern that kind of developed in my life. Well, several probably, but this particular one, had to do with photography. So I, attended a specialized high school in New York City called the High School of Art and Design. It still exists. I'm gonna talk to Arthur about that later,
Mhm.
but but it's, a lot of famous people went to art and design. Um, I don't know if, because some of them are really famous, I probably can. I'm like, also ran, I think. And I may be the only one who knows that I'm an also ran from art and design. Anyway, what happens at art and design is that your first year you have to take 4 classes, your art classes, or 4 classes. You take a sculpture class, a photography class, a drafting class, and I can never remember what the 4th one is. Any rate, from those 4 classes, the next year you pick your major. And so I was required to take a photography class in high school. And there's a big darkroom there, and I knew how to do that stuff. I remember that the picture, one of my several boyfriends that I had in high school was a photographer. And I remember that, I really hope I haven't lost it over the years. I remember he took a photograph of me standing in a doorway. And that's the photograph I submitted for my, like my final project. Was clearly, well, it was pretty clearly, I guess I could have taken it myself, but it really didn't even look like it could have been a self-portrait. I mean, that's how much they were really monitoring this stuff.
Wait, you submitted a photo that somebody else took of you as your
Yes.
final project?
Yes. I didn't claim that I took it, I don't think. Why, I really hope I don't. Well, and I also did the darkroom work of it, which
Oh,
is
okay. So
really
it was
not
more.
very good at all. I mean, but one of the things that's notable is that, well, my favorite jacket, I had a West Point cadets jacket that was like a 3/4 length, like blue-gray military jacket that I had some tailoring done for me. I was very proud of that. This is like the late 60s. This is serious Sergeant Pepper. I had a really nice military jacket, and my hair was so long, like, way past my elbows, really long, dark hair.
Mhm.
And so I was definitely working the hippie in a military jacket look. And yeah, strangely enough, just gonna say that I have a young friend um, many years later who I helped. He was taking photography at NYU, and he submitted and was accepted. It was accepted by the teacher. The teacher knew. He submitted pictures that I took of him for his
Hmm.
final.
Hmm.
So I guess it's also considered a craft if you know someone who knows how to take photographs.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's things coming full circle. So why I brought up this whole thing is that I did not pick photography as my major. I became a package design major at the High School of Art and Design. And then what happened was that after the High School of Art and Design, I went, and this is a much longer story, but I went to art school in Mexico. I went to San Miguel de Allende, which is a tiny little town. I mean, it's really changed over the years, and I haven't been there for a long time, but a lot of expatriates lived there, and there were a number of schools there. And I went to the Instituto Allende, which is kind of a well-known school. Some of my classmates at the High School of Art and Design would go there during like breaks, like their parents would bring them down to Mexico. And so I decided that that's where I was going to go when I graduated. Just
Mhm.
all by myself. I moved to Mexico. But anyway, the pretense was that I was going to the Instituto Allende to study mural painting.
Hmm.
Um, but when I got down to Mexico, the mural painting instructor never showed up. And they had a darkroom in photography. So I started doing photography there. And it happened again. This is where the Garry thing, where I eventually ended up in Austin and eventually enrolled at the University of Texas. in the art school there. And it's almost, I don't know what it's like now, but at that time, it's almost an oxymoron going to art school at a school that's very, very focused on engineering
Mhm.
and things related to the vast oil holdings that they have.
Mhm.
So anyway, and I don't begrudge them that because it's great. You know, I attended a state school that had a lot of money. It's really great. You're not going to a school that can't afford things. They could afford anything. And
Mhm.
including bringing famous photographers to Texas to teach people. Uh,
Such as,
Such as Garry Winogrand, who
yeah.
uh, I so again, I was when I signed up for, I went to night school for a semester or two, and then I decided I always laugh at this one too, because I was living with a guy and I was having some trouble at my job, and I was thinking, oh, I really have to quit. And my boyfriend said to me, well, you know, when I don't want to work, what I do is I enroll in school. So, so I,
Sensible.
I followed his suggestion and I enrolled at UT Austin in the art school, and I signed on as an illustration and painting major. I was always trying to do that. I kept trying to do that. And I hadn't been studying for very long when Garry was already there teaching. I really didn't know that much about him, but I did know about Walker Evans, the world. What did we call that? The WT WPA,
WPA
the work, yeah, work projects. Yeah, from the
administration.
30s. The very famous, influential American photographer, and Garry brought him to UT to talk to us. I mean, to talk to the students. I shouldn't say us because I wasn't even really one of Garry's students at the time. I was so impressed by Walker Evans, who's so cool looking, older Texas gentleman with a big white beard and little
Mhm.
bow tie suit. Um, so yeah, I was really excited by that, and a couple of other things, you know, some books I'd found in the library there, photography books. And I, you know, I was told that I didn't have the prerequisites to be a photography student, but people told me, well, if you go to Winogrand and ask him, he might sign you into the class, you know. And so, yeah, after the Walker Evans visit, I went to him and said, I'd like to, you know, go to your photography class, and I don't have the prerequisites yet. And he signed me on, and yeah, I don't think I ever officially changed, like paperwork wise, um, to become a photography major. I still think I was a painting and illustration major, because the story that I tell in the book um, uh, is I'm trying to remember why I wanted to talk about the, oh, yeah, because about Lee, what's his face?
Right.
The story that I tell in Shameless Distortion about my relationship with Garry Potter um, is that I actually, I was really struggling with being in school. I don't think I'm a good student. And, you know, I think I was dealing with some family trauma all the way back in Boston and New York, but, you know, has a long arm.
Mhm.
And, you know, I was in my 20s, and um, so I remember I went to um, my advisor, and who was a painting instructor. And I had picked him because I was such a knowledgeable student. I had such a great background in the academic world, that I had picked him because I thought he was cute.
Mhm.
And so I went to his office, and I maybe say this in the book, but I always picture myself in the fetal position on his floor,
Mhm.
talking about, my problems or whatever. But I don't really think I was. I think I was in a chair. I don't think I was
Mhm.
curled up on the floor. I think I just felt that way. And so I don't know how long I've been going on with my issues. Here, sorry, other hand.
Mhm.
Um, when he said, uh, Bow was his last name. I don't. Anyway, he got up from his chair and he said, "Can you hold on a minute?" Well, I'm just lying here on your floor in a fetal position, so yeah, go ahead. And he left the office, and he came back, and he said, "I just called Garry, and he says that you should go over to his apartment and go talk to him." Now, I don't, I always kind of wondered, I don't think I mentioned Garry when I was curled up in a ball talking to Mr. Bow about my problems. Um, I don't know. I mean, the art school is not very big. It was the University of Texas back then. The art school was not very big, and maybe people already knew that I was a painting illustration student who really belonged in the photography department. um, so yeah. And then what happens in the visit, and you should buy the book and read it. What happens in the
Mhm.
visit basically is that Garry says to me that said to me, if you want to be a photographer, you should leave school and go be a photographer. So I didn't do it immediately because I couldn't financially. I, had work study jobs and uh, student loans, and I needed those to continue to live. But I did leave about a year later. And so the Lee Friedlander story was that, um, yeah, I I remember I was actually I was in did you look up when Garry died? I don't know the year exactly.
Oh, you don't? No, I haven't looked it up, but keep going. I'll look it up right now.
So I remember I was in the I remember going downstairs to get the mail in the building on Winter Street where I had my this office building that I lived in that had my studio. And
Garry died in 1984, by the way.
84, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that somewhere. I just probably
Mm.
buried it. So I went downstairs to get the mail, and there was a letter from my mother with Garry's obituary in it. And I didn't know. It
Mhm.
was, really devastating, and I was not at all prepared. Um, So I'm gonna say something that's incredibly personal. The thing that I was curled up in a ball in Mr. Bow's office was that I had recently come come back to school from visiting my mother in New York, and during that visit, she told me that my father had died, and nobody had told my sister or me for 8 months. Um,
Wow.
and so, yeah. And I'm laughing because, you know, students get depressed at school. Now we know that. I think we're much more knowledgeable about that. Um, and we're much more knowledgeable about depression, but, you know, I wasn't even aware of how that had affected me. And so I think that the loss of Garry, kind of
Connected to that
on that.
grief.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so I don't know. We can look it up, and I don't know if it's important. it wasn't in 84, but not long after that, Lee, why am I having trouble with his name?
Friedlander.
Lee Friedlander, published a book of photographs. So if you don't know Lee Friedlander, also kind of in the group of photographers that are known, like, oh my God, I'm forgetting, like a kind of generation Garry is part of, and they were
Mhm.
friends. Um, he's, a lot of people really like his work. He's not on the top of my, most influenced by people, but so Friedlander came to Boston when he published this book, and he gave a talk at the Photographic Resource Center, which was an organization that was connected at the time to Boston University.
Mhm.
And I went to see Friedlander talk. And he showed slides from this is in the slide era still. I don't think this was PowerPoint. I think he was
Mhm.
actually showing slides. And one of the first slides that he showed was like the faceplate from his book, which was a picture of Garry. And it really struck me, and it was hard to sit through the lecture. And I went up to Friedlander afterwards, and I had a question for him about Garry. I think I still, actually, this could have been 84, because I think I still didn't really know what had happened. I didn't
Mhm.
know how
Oh,
long, Garry had cancer. I don't know how
mhm.
long. I didn't know at the time. And, I think those were the kind of, I still didn't really understand what had happened. And
So
so,
you were going to talk to Lee more about personal, like about Garry, not about the photography, but more
no,
just, yeah.
yeah. And, and it was, I don't think I was bawling while I was talking to him, but it was evident that I was crying, and he was
Mhm.
very dismissive. I'm going to say dismissive. I got a definitely, I was kind of bummed that he couldn't take me. I probably told him that I had been a student of Gary's in Texas, and he wasn't really taking me seriously at all. And I definitely got like a vibe that he thought I was, on some level, a groupie of Gary's.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I don't know if that made it worse, but I thought that it was notable
Mhm.
about Lee Friedlander. Actually, I think it was notable about who he is.
Do you think he was also just maybe he wasn't comfortable with someone showing emotion in front of him like that in that context? He wasn't prepared for that. He might probably did not get people coming up to him.
I don't think that you open up a lecture with a photograph of a beloved art
Hmm.
figure who's just
Well,
died
that's true.
and think everyone goes, that's great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I wasn't incapacitated by my crying, but I think it was
Mhm.
notable that I was crying. I think I
Mhm.
was able to make sentences.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Lee.
Is that why we went there? Is that why we
Yeah,
discussed?
that was the story, and I think that might wrap up our topics for the
Mm,
day.
all right, it's been great.
We're ending on a slightly emotional note, and that was
Yeah. Wait, things got much darker in here. I'm gonna
it
lighten
did
up
did
my,
well, you don't need to. We're signing off.
but not, wait, we have to wait a minute. Wait, my finger, sorry.
Are you gonna play another song, a recording of you singing?
You know, I only played that song for a couple of people. I know I screwed up by not giving you good volume.
That's
That
all
really
right.
didn't help.
No,
But
that's worse.
I got a better response from most people, my little recording. I guess you're Oh, see that? I'm glad, because I was just about to make a snarky comment.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I wanted to say about um, Tim Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
the guitarist from Swingers Resort, who that recording was in part for. I don't know whether he was a Beach Boys fan or whether you're a Beach Boys fan. Um, but I just found out um, somebody who was taking care of, you can buy my book. Oh, why is my lighting situation? We have to work on this. Um, the person, I have somebody, you can, let's try this again. You should and could buy my book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. And the person who cares for the Amazon sales told me, um, because he had a selection of signed books, and somebody had asked me for a signed book, so I called and said, "Oh, do you have any signed books?" And he said, "Oh no, I sent off the last signed book to a guy named Tim Hayes."
Ah, wow.
I
And it was
know.
definitely the same Tim Hayes?
I don't know,
Hmm.
because I was like, wow, that's Tim. And I said, I wonder, I'm not gonna name this person who's doing it, but he is a music biz person, but he's always saying, "Oh, of course they want to hear from you." And I'm like, yeah, I'm I'm not always sure that's true. You may
Hmm.
think.
Hmm.
But he gave me the email that he had gotten, because it's PayPal. So he had the email address, and I did shoot off a little email and got nothing back. And
Hmm.
I think I have mentioned, I have tried to contact him in the past and don't hear back from him, but
Well, maybe if you send him a song, a singing note,
it
voicemail.
didn't work
Yeah.
on you.
I liked it. I thought it was good. I'll play a recording for you sometime of me singing from like 40 years ago. See if you like it.
That wasn't 40 years ago, that was last week.
Oh, I know, I know. I'm just saying I don't have any recent recordings, so
But you have an iPhone,
I know, but I'm not gonna sing. I can't sing anymore.
really? Because actually, I had really, originally, I had thought that I wanted to propose that you and me and Raj sing a song together.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that one on camera.
You have some support. We can pick another Beach Boys song.
Sure. I
Right,
recently
so are we
learned a
doing
song
the
I
fake
didn't know.
laugh? God, I
Oh, we're
love
gonna freeze it? Okay. Oh, I was okay. Ready?
Yes.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.